Hey guys, welcome back to ALG Woodworking. This is part 2 of the Live Edge Coffee Bar. Hope you're all excited. So in part 2 what we're doing is we're making the base cabinet. I'm using walnut veneer plywood and I'm just going to cut it up to size and I'm going to assemble it just like any other cabinet. I'm going to use a couple of dados to go ahead and inset it so I can glue it up together, since it's going to be a freestanding unit. So I wasn't going to be able to have screws on the outside. And while I did use pocket screws on the inside, I'm not a big fan of pocket screws. So on the side panels, I used the dado blade and I dadoed out to receive the back panel. I was also dadoing a little bit up off the bottom, about 2.5 inches, because I'm using these new feet that are adjustable that you can adjust from within the cabinet using an Allen key. First time I used them, I would recommend them. I'll put the link in. So like I said, this is just a regular cabinet. It's just walnut veneer plywood. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make a solid walnut face frame. There'll be solid walnut drawer fronts on it. I'm using a 1/4 inch piece of plywood for the back. It's just going to sit in the grooves. I'm not even going to glue it. I'm going to let it float around. This cabinet's dimensionally stable, so I don't really have to worry about too much. I can glue everything together. I can screw it because it is plywood. Yet the face frame is not dimensionally stable, but the way you'll see I put the face frame together, I've pretty much accounted for it that it will not expand in any direction to go ahead and ruin the way the face frame is. There you see I got a couple of homemade 90 brackets that I use for clamping. I went ahead and made those myself. Those are really good. It's something you should have in your shop. I know you can buy them, but they're also just as easy to make from scraps. So the feet just actually get screwed on. There's a little hole in the bottom of the cabinet that you can see I drilled out for, that you just adjust with the Allen key. So you can adjust this cabinet to any surface that you're on in any spot should you decide to move it. Face frame I assembled with dominoes. I just dominoed everything, glued it up. I cut myself some spacers so that my face frame would be set exactly how I wanted it, because I wanted the two bottom drawers to be exactly the same size, and the top drawer is obviously going to be a different size. It's smaller. There you see I'm putting my spacers in, playing around with it. Clamp that up, let it dry overnight. Then I went ahead and just sanded it a little bit. One of the things I did here when I put the skirt on is, if you can't get your miters exactly tight, I take the neck of the chisel and I run it across, and it folds the wood down instead of sanding it, opening the miter. The face frame is also going to be attached with dominoes. You can see me there. I dominoed it on, glued it. That's going to be really strong. You can do that with pocket screws too. Again, I'm not a big fan of pocket screws. I do use them when I have to. I was making my own edge banding. You can see I'm cutting some thin pieces. I wanted to cover up the back of the plywood on the back of the cabinet where you can see the end grain. I went a little bit thicker. I went with just under 1/4 inch. I placed the pieces on with some glue and some 23 gauge pin nails. And then I just sanded them up. It was really easy to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. This cabinet is meant to be backed up against the wall, but if you wanted to, now that the plywood is covered, you would be able to have it somewhere where it might be standing out in the open. So I just sanded everything smooth. I wound up using plywood for the drawer boxes. Normally I would do solid wood drawer boxes. In this particular job, the budget wasn't there to go ahead and do solid wood drawers. I also used 1/4 inch for the bottom where I would normally use 1/2 inch. Again, budget issues, and I didn't expect these drawer boxes to be carrying too much weight. I switched back over to the dado blade because I am going to be assembling the drawer boxes with a lock rabbet. There you can see I'm fumbling around. But what I was doing is I used a couple of setup pieces just to figure it out. And once I got it set, I went ahead and I made the first cut with the dado. And then I went ahead and I took one of the good pieces and I started using, again, one of my setup pieces till I got the saw blade set exactly where I wanted. And then I was able to assemble all the drawer boxes and everything went together nice and smooth. It's a little bit of work. And I also, I don't know if you noticed, but I do have the sacrifice fence and I have those clamps. I got those clamps from Rockler. They're really good. I'll put a link for those as well. There you can see with the lock rabbit. I'm just dry fitting, making sure everything's good, everything's snug. Everything was pretty good. You can see it's even, a little tight, but tight is good. You don't want these too loose. I'm just cutting the bottoms there with the track saw. So now what I'm going to do is I put glue in the lock rabbits. I don't put glue where I'm putting the drawer bottom. Again, I cut it pretty much to an exact fit, but not so that I'm going to be pushing my drawer out of square. Once I get it all glued up, I then push everything together. I get the clamps out, clamp it, and I leave those overnight to dry. At the same time that I was letting those dry when I was clamping all these up, I also ripped down and glued up and did a glue up for the drawer face frames. The faces of the drawers were solid walnut, and there was a little bit of sapwood. So I was contending with that. So I wanted to line it up to make it sort of go with the pattern of the piece, where there was the light maple, there was the dark walnut. Just to backtrack a little bit, here what I'm doing, I'm also just putting a little bit of edge banding. Again, I went with just slightly smaller than 1/4 inch on the top of the drawer boxes since I went with plywood. Again, I just glued and I shot those in with 23 gauge pin nailer. If you went a little bit thinner and you couldn't use the pin nailer, you can always just tape those on with some blue tape and leave those overnight. Once all that was done and everything was ready to go, it comes time to put the drawer slides in. This is my least favorite part of any build, but there you can see I had that Rockler drawer side jig that's new to me. Again, thing is awesome. It made this a breeze. I was able to get the drawers all set. All the drawers are in place. There are the drawer fronts I was talking about. I didn't get that on camera because I was working by myself when I did that glue up. Kenny wasn't with me. But Kenny is here now and you're getting all this great footage. I passed the drawer fronts through the planer, got them all to the same thickness. There really wasn't much of a line. This was a very good glue up that I did right here. Cutting everything the size on the miter saw. And then what I'm doing is I'm putting a little 1/8 inch radius around. This piece in itself is just, the wood is the statement. You don't really need to do anything special with this. So just taking the hard edge off again with the 1/8 inch radius. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sand these pieces. I'm going to go through the same process I went with the top. I go with 80 grit, 120 grit, 180 grit, water popping in between each coat, sanding. I hit the edges again with that LS 130 linear sander. I do the rest by hand. There you see, that was just a little bit of the water pop. Again, another Rockler jig. I am not sponsored by Rockler. They just have really good jigs to work with. This one holds your drawer face in place. It takes a little bit of work to get it set up, but once you get the first one set up, and I'm using my combination square to get all my measurements, when I go on to the next ones, and I just transfer this jig down, everything lines up. There's no double stick tape involved. There's no fumbling. There's no can you hold this for me type stuff going on. It really just makes the job that much easier. I attach the drawer faces by doing a couple of number 8 countersink holes in the back and a couple of screws. These drawer faces will also be, hold on, I'm going to pass the drawer handle machine screws through as well. So I just need 2 screws. You can see right there, I didn't do anything to that jig. I just transferred it down. I used a 1/2 inch piece right there just in between just to make sure that my reveals were even. A little bit of tapping around, but again, I transfer it down to the 3rd one. It almost goes as fast as it looks. Here is another jig. I forget who makes this, but this is great for putting cabinet hardware on. Takes all the guesswork out, no crazy measuring. Just find the point you want to put it to, you drill right through. Again, you transfer it up, all your drawer handles are in line, and everything is in place. This will work on the side of a cabinet as well as on the top here. I used long screws so I could pass through. If you don't have long screws, you can just countersink on the drawer face, attach the handle, and then screw it on like I screwed it on with the wood screws to begin with. But here I have the longer screws, so that's just another way to secure it. So when people are pulling on the drawer, there's less pressure. Now that everything is complete and you can see it there, I took the top piece from the first video, I put it on just to get an idea what the piece is going to look like. And then I wanted to connect it so it would be two separate pieces, one for transporting it, and two just in case the homeowner ever has to move it. So I used these threaded inserts. I drilled up through the cabinet and into the bottom so I knew my holes would be lined up. I go ahead and put these are 1/4 threaded inserts. I just use furniture bolts and you're able to connect the piece. Works really well. Here I am just using some raw wood cleaner. I used it on the whole piece. I actually use mineral spirits, and then I'm just doing this finish with the Rubio Monocoat. This is Rubio Monocoat Pure. There wasn't really any big vest. It's not like you're doing a table. So there you go. That's just an applicator pad. So I'm just kind of rubbing it in, working it into the sides. Make sure you get it even. Don't leave anything extra on this. You really want to work each piece. I didn't do each piece individually. I just felt like it would be easier to put the piece together, get all the glue out, and then finish it afterwards. So I just used a little bit of brush strokes there, here and there, to get in the hard to reach places, and I just wiped everything off. It was actually a lot of work. It was very time consuming to get it on, but in the end, everything finished out even. Rubio Monocoat, if you've used it, if you've never used it, it's very easy to use. It's wipe on, wipe off. It finishes very consistent. After I did do the Rubio Monocoat, I put the Rubio maintenance oil on it as well, just to get a little extra bump and sheen. I let these pieces sit for 24 hours before I put the maintenance oil on. Everything came together really well. The client was through the moon, over the top. This is a coffee bar hutch. If you like what you see, please hit the like and subscribe button.